Okay. All right. So let's get everything started. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to be moving away from the exhaustive math that the past few streams have been comprised of, and looking into some more raw design and creative concepts for runecasting. We are going to be looking at the wizard today, and I went over the basics of the wizard last time. But after some discussion with some very smart people, I have decided to take a deeper look into how counteracting works within the runecasting space and how it interacts with spellcasting. So, how counteracting currently works with runecasting is you take your character level, you divide it by 2 and round up, just like a spell, and use that for your counteract level. When you're doing runecasting versus runecasting, it's as normal. However, when you go runecasting versus spellcasting, you would end up treating the runecasting counteract level as 1 less, effectively. And then vice versa, to where if spellcasting were going up against runecasting, you treat it as 1 higher. After some thoughts and some discussion with some very smart people, I have come to the conclusion that this is a bad implementation of counteracting runecasting. So, if we just remove that last part here, and then this other sentence here, counteracting with runecasting is very simple. It's as a spell would counteract anything else. However, it is a little too powerful and a little too flexible because it is resourceless, as is everything in runecasting. But there is a way to remedy this a bit. We can change this to if a runecasting effect attempts to counteract a spellcasting based effect, let's fix that. You do the following on a successful check instead of normal result. That result is you cause the magic to weaken. Any damage dealt by the effect is halved. Any duration. Well, we can compress this a little bit. Any damage dealt and the duration of the effect is halved. Any condition inflicted by the spell is reduced by 1. Now, There's no complication in the moment of, oh, what is the effective runecasting level? What is the effective spell level? You just do counteracting as normal. And then if you succeed on your counteract check as a runecaster versus spellcasting, instead of totally getting rid of the effect, you reduce it by 1. Now the question is, does a critical success cause it to totally negate it? I'll have to think about that. But I think this is a solid spot to be in for now. So, with that out of the way, we can move back to Wizard. So I came up with a couple theses before, and there's another one here that isn't written out. It's the familiar-based thesis, which doesn't really have to change. Coming over to runecasting, there just needs to be new familiar abilities to compensate for runecasters. So with those two, that's 3, and then this last one called the Counter Technician, 4. I think that's a good place to have Wizard in. I don't think there'll be another one. So what will Counter Technician do? As the name implies, and the subject matter that I discovered, it will have to do with counteracting and the equivalents to counterspell or runecasting. So we'll give it some flavor text. Single magic. So I know this looks very simple at the moment, but I think I'm going to leave it here for now. Mainly because I need to flesh out countertech and its other class feats after that. So the next thing will be to make countertech. Oops. One action, 1. Leave a spot for the traits. And then trigger. So I wonder if it's necessary to put a range on this. It's a tricky question. Does it need a range of 30 feet? So there's a little bit of an issue with counterspelling in Pathfinder, where there is a lot of filters in order to pull it off. You first have to have the prepared spell that the enemy also has prepared. You must have the counterspell feat, which is one of your fewer class features as a wizard or other spellcaster. You must also counteract the spell, which, if you're facing someone above your level, it is one, very likely that is like very hard to counteract it in the first place due to DC versus your modifier difference, and two, it's also very likely that they have higher level spells than you, which requires a critical success. So all those things combined make counterspelling a very niche and hard to use ability, which is fine. Counterspelling in other editions gets quite out of control, and it's just a not very interactive counterplay button, especially for players to use against the GM's creatures. However, because the whole idea of runecasting is that it doesn't have the vertical spike, the nova output that is possible with spells, there's not as much of a need to tone it back. And also, it's not like this completely removes the effect of a spell. And for some spells, with the way the counteracting is currently written, counterattack just won't do that much. If you try to counteract a Wall of Stone spell, there's no duration on Wall of Stone. A GM might allow you to have the HP of the walls, but as written, there's not much you can do to Wall of Stone. So I think it's allowed to sort of flourish and expand a bit more into a wider variety of uses, since the potential to totally shut someone down is kind of mitigated. So I'll give it a range that, under most circumstances, is not going to be a problem. Yo, I'm working on the counterspell equivalent for runecasting, and just wizard in general. I hope to finish off the core of wizard today and start going into these synthesis feats. Okay. How are you guys doing tonight? Hope it's going pretty well. So now comes the question of what can countertech do? Counter spell gets around the whole concept of like, oh, I gotta identify the spell in order to go around and counterspell it by just the fact that if you have the spell prepared, you automatically identify the same spell when it's being cast in front of you. Now, because countertech is more flexible, I wonder if I should add another check to recall knowledge about the spell. Maybe it should be just an easy DC to, because all you need to do is recall the traits about the spell, not the spell name, or anything like that, because all you care about are like fire, cold, or whatever opposing traits are involved. Um, so yeah, let's. Would you want to limit it to having used a technique of a similar rune recently to counter it? I think it's already pretty hard to. So yeah, I think what will get around the need for something like that is a recall knowledge into the counteract check. Also, when you're counteracting runes, it's a bit different to spells, as runes are all about dichotomies and oppositions. Counteracting has a list of opposing runes, so you wouldn't counteract combustion with combustion. You would counteract combustion with cold. And then same thing for flesh and mind. So what you need to do is recall knowledge to see what rune they're using. It doesn't matter the technique, just what rune they're using. And then if you have the opposing rune, if you have access to the opposing rune, you may attempt to counteract it. And then you make the counteract check as normal. That way the normal Pathfinder counteracting system just works out of the box. If you start adding stipulations like, oh, I just enacted this same technique right before they used it, then that's a little too niche. I don't think anybody would use that. Unless if I'm misunderstanding you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like your quick thinking allows you to identify what's going on and also kind of disentangle the magic. So yeah, I agree. Now, by the way, this is all based off of the Shadow Siphon spell, which is a very cool spell, very underutilized, I think. But just trying to think. Is there already something for recalling knowledge about spells? Now there's identify magic. Identifying spells, maybe. Spend an action to turn to identify using recall knowledge. Okay, so yeah, there is actually already a DC listed for identifying spells, which is nice. I can just kind of copy this since I can't really say it's identify magic. Yeah, since that's an exploration activity. But I can use this text. Now, let's see by level. So we can just use this table here. Makes it nice and easy. Which, interestingly enough, third level spells. Yeah, it's just the level at which you would learn these spells. Is it all the way? Oh, it's not fully. Oh yeah, it is. Never mind. Yeah, very good. For the triggering techniques, spells. Okay. And this works with techniques because the level of the technique matches the level of the caster. So, like, an effective 4th level spell is the same thing as a level 7 technique, which would be like a 4th level spell effect. So it'll mesh together well, I think. Mm. If it's a technique, learn from which it originates. If it's a spell, learn traits of the spell. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. I have to think for a moment. I'll be right back. I'm going to get some water. One moment. All right. All right. So you access to the opposing rune if it's a thing that is a technique, or you access to that opposes any traits of the spell. You attempt to counteract the technique or spell. I think that does just about does it. Now, of course, I need to write out what traits the different runes oppose. I just realized that, which we can do now. So this is going to require some thought. I need to think of all the different traits of the various spells in Pathfinder, and I need to also think of and remember what traits are used in spells. Like, is time covered in time sense? No. What about warp step? No. So I'm wondering if perhaps certain runes can counteract certain schools. I don't know how that sounds. I know there is a Rune Lord feat that does a similar thing at a much higher level than level 1. I'm aware of that, but we are also not totally killing the spell on a success. And it's still quite restrictive because you still have to succeed the recall knowledge. They are already divided into the different traditions. So Arcane has the Combustion, Destruction, Light, Mind, Gravity, Time, Void runes. I thought about that. It feels too bad for the Runecaster. The feat will never get taken if it's a degree of success. Because if you have to crit succeed, basically against any impactful effect, then you're looking at like a 5% chance if you succeed the recall knowledge and everything else. You have the right rune prepared. I could make it as general as, say, the traditions, but that's probably a little too general. How many schools are there? So there's abjuration, conjuration, divination, enchantment, evocation, illusion, necromancy, transmutation. So there's 8. It's only 8. Huh. They have their tradition, but like a wizard is only arcane. But you can take a rune from any tradition. It's not really a rune is a part of a tradition. It is traditions have favored runes. And I think the draw of the wizard will just be the fact that they will be able to prepare the most runes out of like any caster. They will simply be able to eventually have all the runes at their disposal to where they can, if they so choose, counteract any spell. As long as they can identify the spell and apply the right rune. Because if it's just tradition based, like if I say any rune from the arcane favored list can counteract any spell of the divine list, that's pretty much every runecaster will probably have one of these runes. So that means any runecaster can counteract divine. And it's going to be the same thing across all traditions. So I think by school might be a better way to approach it, to where of using schools. So if we take like abjuration, for example, what would abjuration be opposed by? Probably destruction. And that's a good one to go for. Now, how many runes do we have again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. 8 into 15 is unfortunate. Yeah, gravity could work. Destruction gravity. Some of the schools will not, or it'll be like 2 of the schools won't have opposing, will not have 2 opposing runes. I mean, gravity is quite destructive. Like, if you were close to a black hole, the difference in gravity from your head to your toe would be like tying a tank to your feet and hanging from your arms. You can rip things apart pretty easily. Okay. What's the next one in the list? Conjuration. Almost want to use destruction again, but maybe we can think of something else. Void is probably a great one for this. You make conjuration's all about making something out of nothing, and void's all about making something into nothing. Conjuration might be one of the ones that only gets 1, though. Yeah. We can think about it as we go along. Next up, what is it going to be? Divination. Divination. That will probably be light. And mind. Since those tend to be the tricksy ones. Counteracting the ability of divination to sort of see and observe. Like sense would complement divination, while light and mind would definitely go against it. So we have enchantment next. Now enchantment is all about muddling, but so is illusion. Illusion's going to be an easy one. That's sense. What would enchantment be? counteracted by. Problem is that the schools are made with a different mindset than the runes are. Never really liked the concept of magic schools, and tabletop RPGs are so inconsistent. Hmm. Thing is that destruction fits for too many of these, because these I really don't like the schools of magic. Galarian lore trumping me once again. Might have to approach this slightly differently, like allow certain runes. Hmm. I don't think I want that though. Hmm. I don't want repeats of runes, because that makes the rune objectively more powerful. So illusion has to have sense. Now enchantment, yes, I could see an argument for flesh for enchantment. Hmm. Hmm. Well, enchantment's going to be will for sure. Most of the time, if it's a save, it's going to be will for enchantment. Uh, Divination is going to be will or fortitude. Conjuration is kind of a toss up. Abjuration, also a toss up, but leaning towards like reflex or fortitude. Illusion is will. Um, Application is going to be, which I need to put here. It's going to be reflex. Conjuration might be a lot of reflex spells actually. And then necromancy is going to be fortitude. But yeah, and then transmutation. Transmutation's a fairly easy one. Time. Time and like earth. Maybe cold and combustion can counteract evocation. I need another one for either enchantment or illusion, and 2 for necromancy. Well, the effects of, say, a evocation spell, my idea is either you like counteract, say, fireball with the cold rune as a general idea, a more general idea, like a meta idea, or you like take something that's cold and you turn it into neutral, basically counteracting the like volatile nature of evocation by having access to the up knob and the down knob on energy. So there's going to be 2 runes for each school, except one. Wait, there's 8 schools and 15 runes. Yeah. So only one school can have 1 rune. Void does all at a penalty. It will be able to go against Conjuration without its penalty. Which I realized I just deleted from the counteracting section. Yeah, the Void can counteract anything that's intense at a penalty, and then except for Conjuration spells, it'll uh, behave normally. Right now I have time on Transmutation. Maybe time fits better with Necromancy. It's just Transmutation is all about changing things, like their state, and time is like the mediator to where all things eventually return to 0. You haven't used electricity yet. Maybe electricity can go in evocation, but I don't know. Seems weird. I'm guessing like shocking grasp. It's evocation, yeah. Like even sudden bolt. It's evocation. True. Put electricity in necromancy. So we have cold and combustion. We don't have creation, actually. Creation definitely deserves to be in necromancy. Or necromancy's opposition. Um, just hate that the schools do not cover an equivalent concepts, because abjuration is all about like protection, while necromancy is all about positive and negative energies. So those two are not equivalent in subject matter, and it's frustrating to deal with those flaws in logic, I think. I think it's okay to use them, otherwise we're going to be short a lot more runes here. I mean, if we disclude uh reach and enhance, we're done. This is what it is. Maybe that's good enough. I don't know. I don't know. So illusion spells typically are also effects that you could use like the dispel ability on, because they're long lasting, right? So, or scroll down to disassemble. You just use the disassemble on it because it's a yeah, it is a just like a dispel magic sort of effect. So illusions aren't too potent if you're really going for counteracting, because they're long-standing effects that you have time to counteract. Enchantment, similarly so. They're typically long-standing effects that you have time to counteract afterward. Conjuration, less so. Conjuration might be a good candidate for enhance if we were to add it in. But because Conjuration has some direct offensive spells, it is also the teleporting school. Yes, and the summoning school. That's right. You can be punishing to players with counterspell if you really want to. There's a lot, like Dimension Door, for example, is the ultimate I'm running away spell, and a lot of creatures have Dimension Door prepared or even at will. So all you have to do is give counterspell to one of those creatures, and your players are screwed. I can also amend the counteract rules. Also include the area. Cut the area in half. That way the fireball, instead of being a 20-foot gigantic explosion, turns into a 10-foot more controlled burst when counteracted. So currently the only ones that we have not used are Enhance and Reach, which are the awkward ones to use for sure. Like, I could see the argument for Reach being on Enchantment and Enhance being on Conjuration. But we could even spin it. That illusion magic in particular is very hard for most runes to disentangle when the lore of this stuff is written out, of why things are the way they are. Yeah, I think this is a decent list that can change. I would not be opposed to changes, but it's not bad. Yeah. So with that in mind, we go back to counterattack. We now have a complete feat and a complete counteracting system that bridges not only within itself, but between both magical systems. Yeah, that's a good idea. Is that it's hard to, because techniques are all about like being very personal and like obvious and individual, while illusions are all about like muddling that and being hard to track. Kind of opposes the whole idea of runecasting as a whole. Okay. So with that done, I'm trying to think. At level 1, a wizard can only oppose 4 schools of magic. As they level up, basically each rune tier that they get, so at level 7, when they upgrade to expert spellcasting, they'll get another temporary rune that they can prepare, as well as increasing the tier of one of their runes. So that's 5. And then at whatever level, I think it's 15, where they get master spellcasting, that's another temporary rune, that's 6. And then at legendary spellcasting, they have 7. So they can potentially counteract with maximum effectiveness 7 out of the 8 schools. If they're not doing any like doubling up. I think that's fine. You need to. No, you do not actually enact this technique. No. You're not forced to use disassemble to counteract the spell or technique. Counterspell relies on a spell, but counter tech is an ability that runecasters can have. So there's no rune casting check involved. There's no even real technique involved here. It's just, do you have make the recall knowledge check, and if you have the prerequisite rune for the technique or spell that's being hurled around, you can attempt to counteract it. That's it, period. Now I should note in here somewhere that you use your character level or your maximum runecasting level for your counteract level. I guess I can throw that in there. Use your runecasting for maximum runecasting level. There's no use your character level. So yeah, the process is recall, counteract. That's it. And then if you were using disassemble, which is particularly for long-standing effects or to counteract magical items, then that is just simply counteract. You don't need to recall knowledge. Okay. I think I'm going to make a level 4 feat. Another issue that I have with counterspelling is that there's a gigantic gap. If you wanted to make an anti-mage caster, you have 1 feat at level 1, then your next feat is at level 12. Realistically. And that kind of sucks. That you can't like really specialize into a certain idea of a caster. While sorcerer can get like 3 feats for their bloodline. And kind of really dig into like, yes, I am a draconic sorcerer. Kind of sucks that there's no like anti-mage build that happens before level 10. Besides the idea of just getting more spells to counteract with. But I think what counter technician will be is just that you gain its counter tech feat, and then at level 4 you gain this feat for free. Basically 2 free class feats. That's all it really needs to be. There might be some quirky little thing that's appended onto here, but I'll have to think about that more in detail. All right. Yeah, I think this is looking good now. Countertech is written, and we have a nice, more fully comprehensive, and kind of feels better system for Runecasting. Yeah, I'm liking it. Well, I think that is all I was hoping to accomplish tonight. I think next time, the thing to look forward to is synthesis techniques. Now that we have a good basis for a level 1 wizard, we can start fleshing out probably the part of runecasting I'm most excited by, synthesis techniques, which gives a lot more impact to class feats for casters, as in they give you directly more things to do, kind of how like a fighter, you have intimidating strike, power attack, knockdown, and all these fun abilities that are like a named ability that I spend my actions on to do. I want to give a little bit of that to runecasting, but still with a tempered idea of just there. You just basically buy into an individual technique that you particularly like outside of the set of basic techniques that you get. Yeah, I think that's the next step. And from there, once we get up to like level 6 in the feats, it'll be time to rotate over to Sorcerer and get that done. That one's going to be a doozy. And then I think that'll be a good point when once we get that to level 6, that'll be a good point to start playtesting and throwing this all over the place and trying to get people to try it for low-level casters. Yeah. It's exciting. Well, I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. It's been fun. And I will see you guys next week. Have a good night.